Sound is.
This episode of Ouzo Talk is brought to you by The Greek Providore. Visit thegreekprovidore.com.au.
So Nick, be honest, mate. Are you sick of seeing me this week?
Tom, you know what? I missed you. You're part of the house now.
That's a lie.
You're parking in my driveway. You're always in my fridge.
Yep.
You're taking over my furniture. You're part of the household, mate.
I'm cooking on the hob as well, mate. I've moved in.
You have, mate. I love it.
How you been going?
Excellent. Life's been really good, actually. It's been a lot of fun, especially with you, with all the special guests we've had in the house and all the amount of Ouzo we've been drinking.
Yeah, it's been pretty special. I'll tell you, it's been a busy week for the podcast. I think we've recorded 3 episodes already, and there's even more to come. There are just so many Greek stories to tell out there, aren't there?
There is. And I think we're just scratching the surface. There's so many other untold stories that hopefully we'll get them here and get everyone to listen in.
It's important to us to have people talking about their passions on this podcast, and today's episode is unique in the sense that, to some degree, we're all passionate about this topic. What we'll be talking about today is Greek food, Greek cuisine, Greek gastronomy. Really quickly, when you think of Greek food, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Me personally, lamb, souvlakia, Moussaka, yemista. It's my favourite.
Really?
It is. I love it. My mum's yemista. Does it the vegetarian way.
Right.
Oh, beautiful. She makes a whole tray of it. Probably lasts a day, I think. I'll have it for lunch and dinner, sometimes breakfast.
Yummy stuff for breakfast. Love it.
Definitely. Heat it up. Oh, yeah, I can smell it already.
Seriously, with the passion and experience we have in this room, Nick, you'd have the greatest dinner party that this house has ever seen. And that's saying something, because we've got some pretty good cooks around, don't we?
We do. It's awesome. I can't wait for you to introduce them. But the way me and you eat our food, we love our food. We're in our element here today, I think.
I think so too. And look, to start off, in the room with us are 2 amazing head chefs whose work and establishments have achieved the acclaim of punters and critics alike, resulting in a whole rack of Good Food Guide hats. For those outside Australia, that's similar to the Michelin star system. So from restaurants such as Cosmos, Omega, Alpha, now his new restaurant Ploos, we have the incredible Peter Conistis. An honour to have you here, Peter. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be here.
And alongside him from establishments such as Universal Hotels, Berama and Xanthi, the equally talented and amazing David Tsirekas. David, mate, welcome.
Good afternoon, guys.
Good to have you here, mate. But Nick, I think we need one more person, because while these boys have the restaurant scene covered, Greek food very much lives, breathes and thrives at the home. And our next guest has done an amazing job of promoting traditional Greek food and recipes to people online via her website and to some 40,000 odd Instagram followers. Can you believe that?
That is huge.
It is. Her passion for Greek food is genuinely inspiring. She's been featured on Channel 7 Australia's morning show Sunrise. And as a side note, she's actually my neighbour. Would you believe that? From Mary's Couzina, the lovely Mary Politis. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
I can't believe we've got these people in the room with us.
Me neither.
Guys, thank you all so much for being here. We're honoured to have you. And Nick, I think it's safe to say we're going to eat well today, aren't we?
I think we are, Tom.
The guys have been kind enough to bring some stuff in. We've brought a couple of little things as well. Look, before we eat, I think it's time to have a drink, don't you think, Nick?
Definitely. Feeling thirsty.
Fantastic. Let's get into it. Στην υγεία μας, παιδιά. Welcome.
Cheers, everyone. Welcome.
Cheers.
Great to see
Thanks for
you.
having us.
You are welcome.
Πάντα τέτοια.
Long distance cheers.
Πάντα τέτοια. Nick, today's Ouzo comes to us courtesy of our amazing sponsors at the Greek Providore. What are we drinking today?
It's down your alley, Tom. Lazaris Ouzo, straight from Corfu.
I promise I didn't plan this.
Are you sure?
Yeah, seriously, I didn't plan it, but I am so thrilled that we have a bottle from Corfu. I've been to Lazaris virtually every time we go back home to Corfu. They're lovely people and make a beautiful product, and a few products actually, not just the Ouzo, the kumquat as well, which is also available via the Greek Providore. Oh, Peter's
nodding.
Yeah.
I tried it when I was about 15, I think, when I went to Gek, and I was blown away by it. So I've utilised kumquats a lot, or made my own version of it over the years. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Kidding.
There you go.
Yeah, I love it. It's so sickly sweet, but amazing.
It's very true.
Okay.
Well, what do you guys think of this one? It's pretty nice, isn't it?
It's very spirity.
It is.
It's a good wintry drink. It's very warm when you take it down.
And one of the other things that we were saying when we tried this off air first up was that it tasted a lot cleaner. in some respects. A lot of these other ones that we've tried to this point, there are sort of synthetic sort of tones in it a little bit. This one, you don't get as much of that, do you, Nick?
No, definitely. It's a lot smoother and it's got that clean feel. But
Yeah.
typical of Greek Providor, Tom, bringing great classic produce out. And I believe one of our guests uses their produce as well, Mary.
Oh, all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
big advocate for them, absolutely.
Yeah, well, what do you use? What's your favourite one?
Oh, a lot of their olive oils. Ladolea is my favourite.
Classic.
But the Lazarus, I've even tried their limoncello. I'm a big limoncello fan, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
Really delicious. Very, very smooth.
Yep.
And I do need to try their kumquat, actually. I haven't tried that yet. Everything they sell is fantastic. So artisanal, really delicious. I've been trying their chocolates lately. They're really beautiful as well. Their teas.
Is that the one with the metaxa in it as well?
I haven't tried that one, but
you
they
gotta
do
get that
have
in
the
your life.
metaxa. Okay, noted. My next purchase.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, they're champions. And they brought us a big box of goodies as well. We got that honeycomb honey.
And a honey with mastica in it as well, which fantastic. And also the, we needed a top up of the oregano after the last time, didn't we?
We did. Like I said, all their stuff is quality, and that's why we've formed a partnership with them.
Yeah.
Everything they bring into Australia, it's quality. So well done, Crystal and Patricia. You guys are awesome.
Check them out online, and Mary's on Instagram. You can see a lot of their products there on Mary's page as well. We're so happy that they're on board with us, and we get to try some of their stuff. Thank you very much, girls.
Yeah, awesome job. And their products are everywhere.
They
Where
are.
I look, you see Greek Providor and all over their Facebook, the shops all over Sydney.
Yep.
They're
Sell their
even at
products.
the gallery in Canberra at the moment for the Greek exhibition. Yeah, so you can even get them at the gift shop there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so they're expanding. And they haven't been around that long either, and they're just taken off.
I love that, because one of the biggest things when I go to Greece is always going and check out all the stores where you can get all the artisanal stuff, everything. And I've always wanted to see a lot of that come into the country here, and you're seeing it more and more now. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, this is something we've spoken about for years and years. You guys would probably remember it was always a case of when someone was going to Greece, it was always like, oh, you got to bring me back this. For me personally, it was this thing called Tsirekas that you get, which is a spice mix in Corfu. Nowadays, and I mean, we've sort of grown up in an era now where you can get a lot of these products here. People don't want the imitations anymore. So it's great that the quality is sort of rising, and
absolutely.
it's what you're saying, Pete.
Yeah.
Now, guys, before we kick it off properly, we always ask everyone, where are you guys actually from? What are your Greek credentials? Maybe we'll start with you, Peter. What's your Greek family background?
Basically, 3/4 of the family are from Sterea Alada, from Napak to Anipalio, and Dad's maternal side is from Kepadonia.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. And what about yourself, Mary?
My dad's from Messinia in a village called Ayadrea.
Okay.
A really beautiful spot. And my mum, she's Cretan. She's from, their side is from Midas and Matala, so down south
Beautiful.
in Crete. Yeah.
There you go.
We love the Cretans. We need to, otherwise, there might be a vendetta thrown on us.
Yes, exactly. We do love the Cretans, and a lot of your cooking's based on Cretan cuisine.
A lot of it is, yeah. We've spent a lot of our time growing up with my yaya from my mother's side.
Beautiful.
And mum always being at home with us and being so heavily influenced herself growing up in Greece. Yeah, I just picked up on it as well. So.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, David?
Oh, well, I'm a barbarian from the north. A true Makedona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all the Makedonians out there who are holding up the Star of Virginia.
We love it.
But I found out 2 weeks ago that, the story keeps evolving of my great-grandma on my dad's side, who came from Smyrna.
Yes.
Walked over from Smyrna to Kouzina. So
Wow.
that's where both my parents are from, the same village called Anokomi, and north of Krokos, which is the epicenter of saffron country.
Wow.
My great-grandmother walked all the way from Smyrna all the way to Kouzina with 8 kids in tow.
Unbelievable.
But she had her origins in mainland Turkey, and they're still debating which part of Turkey. So
Such rich history, especially from that part of the world. And I understand, Mary, your family is from a similar sort of...
My husband's side.
Your husband's side,
My
yeah.
husband's side, yeah. My father-in-law was born in Constantinople, in a little village called Kurtuluş, really close to Taksim. So we've been there, we visited a lot of Greeks there, and you wouldn't even know it unless you spoke Greek to them. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are they Turkish Greeks that were from Turkey that went over that were in Greece that went over to Turkey, or are they original Greeks?
They're original Greeks,
Wow.
still living there. Yep, they're very, very old, but
And they
fantastic
speak the language?
people. They speak the language. Yep. My father-in-law, he speaks Turkish as well.
Wow.
Yep.
And they
Fluent
kept
Greek.
up with their Greek. Did they have Greek schools there?
Yes, the school he went to was actually down the road from where he lived, where we visited, and we visited his school as well, and it's a Greek school. There's so much Greek history still there that needs to be visited. And it's
Unbelievable.
fantastic.
Could be another episode in that, Tom.
I think so. I think so. Well, it's great to hear. We've got a little bit of a smattering everywhere, from all over Greece and all over the sort of Hellenic world, shall we say. And we can kind of see a little bit of that regionality on the table here today. And for those who are not in the room with us, we have a couple of things. Mary, can you maybe just explain what you've brought here?
All right, so I've brought you a little something from the Politis Cuisine. So souvlaki sto forno. I absolutely love spices in my food. And that's just something my father-in-law has talked to me a lot about with the memories he has of his mother's cooking. This dish is actually the most remade dish the people who support me online make. And it's a real favourite. And I hope you guys love it as well. It's such a great weekly meal.
Why don't we start sort of digging in a little? Maybe we can have a little bit of a try.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
Mary,
Peter,
can I
if you want
ask,
to start off there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you serve. So, Mary, quick question as well. What's in it? Tell us exactly what it is.
Aromatic meatballs, souvlaki, really.
Thank you, Pete.
Aromatic meatball, cumin. The spices I always use, my go-to: cumin, allspice, clove, and cinnamon, of course.
David, can you fill
So
us up?
you call them souvlaki to forno, so you
Yes.
don't call them souvlaki smireneka?
I do, but because this one is done in the oven
Right.
and not in a cazzarola or
Yeah.
in a pot over the stove, that's why I've called
Right,
them souvlaki sto forno, yes, with patatas.
This is a weekly occurrence for you to have.
Oh
a
yes,
dish like
especially
this?
it's my husband's favourite.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on
see
rotation.
why.
Gosh, I'm nervous. Two amazing chefs
I was
trying
just
my
gonna.
food.
I was just gonna say, Mary. I mean, we've
We've got plaques here. We're going to have to score you out of 10.
we've thrown you under
Oh, God, no.
we've
no,
thrown you
joking.
under the bus
I'm
because
sweating.
There's something you should know about chefs that no matter what, you could be cheese on toast. If somebody cooks for a chef, we are so grateful because most people
I
won't
understand
cook for
that.
chefs.
Yeah.
So we love it.
I
So
understand.
we-
I enjoy
We'd
it.
never
Yeah.
ever judge it. But when somebody's restaurant, we might. But somebody cooking at home, God, no, never.
Yeah. Mary, the smell is 10 out of 10 already. I haven't even
Thank
tried
you.
it yet.
Thank you.
But
Enjoy.
can I just say,
What do
the
you want
recipe is on the tea towel that you brought in.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
How
I've
good is
created
that?
a bit of a synergy between art and food. And as an art teacher and art lover as well, it's
Yeah.
my first passion. I've just decided to bring the two together and document my family recipes on tea towels. And
what a great way to do it too.
yeah, it's a great way to preserve recipes instead of having to go online. You've got it in your sitari instead. So yeah, it's been a beautiful thing and a way to keep up and another form of creativity for me to
It is brilliant.
let out. Thank you.
So if we were to purchase some, where can we get some?
Oh, just on my website, maryscousina.com.au.
Yeah, I'm not joking. They are unreal.
They are. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
They're
Thanks,
beautiful.
guys. Thank you.
And this food, oh my God,
Well-
immaculate.
Well, David, you've already had a few bites there. What do you reckon?
Oh, look, it's so on point with the flavours and of that, the whole smirniotica style of meatballs, you know, as opposed to, sort of other regions of Greece where they don't use these heavy spices,
And that's the first thing that jumps out, isn't it? It's those aromas. I'm getting cinnamon and cumin in
Yes,
particular.
yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cinnamon and cumin.
Yeah.
I once, funnily enough, had a customer in my restaurant. I made a sauce with tomatoes, cinnamon, and honey, right? And they came up to me and said, "This is not Greek. Nobody uses cinnamon and tomato together." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, what planet have you been living under?" It's exactly how I remember Sunday. I remember going out all night, Saturday night, to the old Apia Club. I'm an 80s child, so the Apia Club.
Peter's waving.
Or then we'd go to, Marconi Club. Or,
Sure.
back then there was a club called Zeus. Or, the cauldron or
Yep.
wherever it was, and then waking up Sunday morning and smelling the house
Yeah.
full of these spices was now we have candles.
Yeah.
What they should do is get like a Greek grandmother to come to your house and cook, and your house is
That is a great
Yeah.
point. Great point. And I just had a bite of one of the potatoes as well, and those spices, those aromatics are in everything. It is beautiful.
Thank you.
Peter, what about yourself? You've had a try now. What do you?
I love it. Part of Greece where I'm from, they rarely used cumin, those sort of
Yeah.
flavours in the food there. It was all very clean. I'd call it clean. But they've always been a big part of my world. I love those spices. So I believe, like, my biggest love is any Greek food which has like an undertone of a spicy baklava flavour in it. Using the cumin, and the cinnamon and the cloves in there. I love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well done, Mary. How does that feel?
I'm chuffed.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary, it's sensational. As you can see, I've just cleaned up my plate. If you guys weren't here, I'd be licking the plate. It is beautiful. There's so much flavour in that.
So we've started off with these really strong smells of the Politis Kouzina. Maybe we should go to the other side now. Now, my wife's made some Sofrito, which is a corfiot dish, which is basically done with beef or veal. Some people do it with pork as well. Parsley, vinegar or wine, and some and a lot of garlic as they use on that side, which is more Venetian influenced.
I love the cuisine of Corfu. Love it. I've spent a lot of time researching it. I mean, even years and years ago when I couldn't get all the greens, I was making my own quince mustard,
Really?
like the mustard they have there, just so I could emulate the sort of flavours.
Do you guys see a lot of Italian and Venetian flavors from that side of Greece, or does it extend to the other side as well? Do you think?
No, I see. On my part, I see it mainly around the Ionian Islands. So less and less as you're heading further down, like when you get to Kythera, very little.
Yes.
But the ones that are in the group at the top, I see quite still a
Yeah.
Italianate influence in the food. And the names of a lot of the food as well that are very Italianate.
Well, sofrito in particular, that's I think that's the word for sautéing or something.
It is, yeah. And borvetto for and pastizada, which I do, and a lot of those, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's totally, again, very regional, and that's one of the things I find that we don't have pride in, I guess, as much as the Italians do in their restaurants, where they become very regional focused, or the French. We've certainly sort of pigeonholed ourselves as restaurateurs. Before, I guess, Pete really was the first person to break the mold a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I came after Pete, and for me, this is how I connected with my Hellenism.
Sure.
By understanding the greater picture of Greek food rather than what we have in tavernas. This tells a story about Greek food, and then it's a big story.
The Italians do it so well, don't they?
Yeah.
It's something that they probably do better than anyone. I don't know if you've seen Vincenzo, who's online. Vincenzo's Plate get really indignant when they get when people do the wrong thing with their food.
Absolutely.
But one of the funniest things I've seen recently, and you guys must have seen it, Gordon Ramsay recently poking fun at Gino D'Acampo on their show that Greek food, firstly, is underrated, but that it's better than Italian cuisine.
Yes.
What did you guys think of that?
I haven't seen it, but I agree.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm going to be controversial and say if it wasn't for the Byzantine period, Italian and French cuisine wouldn't be where they are today.
Okay.
Okay, and why is that?
There's two major culinary shifts of Europe. One was Alexander the Great, opening up the markets from the east, the flavours and ingredients. And the second was Constantinople, being the hub of trade and commerce between Asia, Africa, and North Africa, mostly the Middle East. We're talking about, the Levant and Europe. And so these were the two that sort of opened up the world. And then further down, of course, was the New World, when, sort of the Spanish and had conquered South America.
Yeah. It's interesting though, Nick. We had some pretty good wine experts on the show not long ago, and that sort of path that David's just spoken about is exactly what those guys were talking about. How the Greeks basically spread, the grape and whatnot along those same sorts of lines. It makes sense that it would be both the food and the viniculture as well.
Well, that's right. They go together, the food and the wine, and the way that they talked about spreading the grape all through France and Italy, where the Greek diaspora spread, they all ended up being Greek colonies. And I guess that's where the food went as well. We talked about Marseille and Nice being Greek colonies, and that's where they planted certain types of grapevines. And I'm assuming the food would have gone the same path as well as all over Italy, Sicily, and they say Calabria is like a mega Grecia, they call that area. So it does make sense that the Greeks would have had a big influence on the Italians and the French because of that pathway we just talked about.
And it's all about telling a story, as you just said, isn't it, David?
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-way street. It's not just, the Greeks going, giving something. It's also, sort of the fusion, like I said from my previous comment, of our masters, the Venetians, Franks, Ottomans, Crusaders.
It's a melting pot of different food. So I guess it's not only Greek, however, it's just a melting pot of all these races and tribes from that area.
Yeah, of course. And not only that, we share ideas with other cultures. The flavours might be different, but the concept and the technique is the same. We share the same sort of pickling methods as the South Americans, or wrapping methods, cooking rice in leaves as the Southeast Asian cultures,
Very true.
There's distance separates us, but the love and the passion for cooking are very similar. Our yayas, whether you have a Japanese yaya or a Chilean yaya, they all have the same approach to food. But using ingredients that are indigenous to their own areas.
So let's talk about food back in Alexander the Great's time. So I believe you were going to do a degustation on Alexander the Great. Do you want to just talk through that?
Oh, well, it wasn't... I took a lot of creative sort of approach to it, utilising, significant parts of Alexander's campaign. So, for example, we started off with oysters, cheese and nuts, and like you have here on the table. Oysters were first cultivated in Macedonia, in the north, in the Lake Aliakmon. They used the oysters as armour, to put it on the armour, as
oyster
as
shells.
a sign of you were part of the monarchy or the elite Macedonian Empire. When they set the army off, they gave them all a parcel of bread, cheeses, dried fruit, nuts as their rations. That was their first thing. They gave each soldier on the beginnings of the campaign.
Well, what type of nuts did they?
Well, almonds would have been there, walnuts, pistachios, and then the pickled leaves of the pistachios as well. Right. And then the next course, for example, was talking about the Battle of Granicus. When they crossed the Bosphorus, back then it was the Hellespont, and that was the first major victory over the Persians. Out of respect of the commanders and the governors, the satraps as they were called, they buried them with their stew, which had pomegranates in it, because it was custom for Persians to be buried with purple. So they cooked them a goat stew and buried them with it as their passage to the afterlife. So they respected. So that was the next course. So
it's amazing that you can go back and do that sort of research and be inspired by, take inspiration from things like that. Peter, is that something that you do in your cooking as well? Like, would you go that far back, or how do you get inspired?
Well, I don't go as deep as David. I mean, wow, I love listening to that. Mine, I don't know, mine's a lot less.
You take more of a modern.
Mine's a lot more on the surface. Yeah, I mean, recently, over the years, it's been hard. It's been mainly about indigenous ingredients and techniques and dishes, and that's what's inspired me, basically. But recently, just going back to what you were saying before about regional cuisine, that's my next big chapter with food at the moment, and with Ploos, that was the main thing. It was my first foray into it, where we are cooking specifically regional food mainly, and I got nervous when you said it, Cretan and Cypriot, because they were just the two cuisines I wanted to start with, because I find what they use and what they bring to Greek kitchen is amazing, the flavours and so on. And from there, with the next one we're doing, will be a bit more about Central Greek food, and I love that it's time that the Greeks shared all of that, that our food is regional as well. It's not just about going to every restaurant. On every restaurant you'll see a moussaka and a slow roasted lamb shoulder. Not there's anything wrong with that, but it's more than that, and it's one thing that we've held back on for many years for whatever reason. We haven't actually, maybe within our homes we've been very proud of it, but I know even back in Greece a lot of people have been they've held back on wanting to share a lot of that food that's very regional for whatever reason. A lot of people thought maybe it was a little bit just for the family, especially when a lot of the dishes were quite simplistic in a sense, and they thought, it's not for people to share. But it's like the food is amazing. The regionality of Greek food is unbelievable, and that's what I'm actually, sorry if I can share, it's what I'm working on right now on the next cookbook, where it is a regional Greek cookbook, which I'm working on for 3 years, and I've been working hard to pigeonhole each chapter is about each region and what stands out in that region, be it, as I said, the indigenous produce from there, or a technique or a dish, and it's been good and it's been exciting, and so I thought I'll just start with a Cretan and Cypriot version and then go from there.
Good that you mentioned what you just said, because so much of Greek food, let's get the stereotypes out of the way first. When most non-Greeks think of Greek food, they're thinking of some pretty specific things, aren't they? It's always about the things that you've just mentioned, the likes of your moussakades, your lamb, souvlaki, and gyro. For a start, to you guys, how accurate do you think that is as a representation of what Greek food actually is, and what's the reality?
Lamb's eaten a lot more in this country than it is in Greece, and that's mainly because I know when my parents came here, they couldn't believe how cheap and available it was, so it became a big part of it. In Greece, lamb or goat was mainly for very special occasions, Easter or so on. It just wasn't on the table every second night. Absolutely, it was held esteemed. It was like something you enjoyed rarely, but you really loved it. It didn't become just lamb again. Parts of Greece away from it was mainly about seafood and the vegetable dishes, and because having spent time many years ago with my fears and yayalas, half the year they used to fast anyway, the old ones. So it was mainly a Lenten diet that they all lived on, which is amazing because all that food is unbelievable. They're so creative what you could do with those ingredients.
And you didn't even realise it was veggie.
No, God, no. But the lamb was never a big part of it. As for moussaka wasn't from the part of Greece that my mum's from. She only had moussaka if she went to some relative who was mainly around the Athenian side where they would cook it. Mum had said the first time she had moussaka was when she was in her early 30s. She'd never had it before that. In her part of Greece, it was all about bitters, because in Central Greece it's all about it. And they were like, that's what they showcased on the tables, be it a tiropita or a chortopita. There was never a spanakopita, it was always a chortopita. Or very specifically a makaronopita, which is a big part of our part of Greece.
That's only a very new revelation for me. I didn't even know that existed.
Not to me.
I didn't know that existed until someone
Unbelievable. I had it in my first cookbook 30 years ago where I put it out, because it was the Greek macaroni, what do they call it, macaroni and cheese. It was like, it was macaroni. There's a big part of Greece.
It's big in Ipiro. My mum makes
yes,
it as well. It's
huge.
Yeah, that's a big
for
Venetian influence.
Exactly.
From the Ionian Islands. So
there
you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, Peter, you touched on regions and you touched on Crete as well. So, Mary, I know you've got a Cretan background. What kind of Cretan food is there?
Look, honestly, when I think of Cretan food, it just goes straight to mizitra, because they've just got the best mizitra out of the whole of Greece. And you got your gliko and you've got your salty version as well.
Can you explain what that is for our non-Greeks?
It's basically ricotta, like a ricotta cheese, but it's just beyond words beautiful, and the way they enjoy it as well is so delicious. My tia would always she makes her tiropitas, but it's always served with honey, so they always have that sweet and salty way of serving it.
Yeah,
I've seen Peter do that quite a bit.
Yeah, I love them. They're great. I love it. It's a great dish.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
And Peter, anything else for Cretan food that you want to add?
I'm loving Cretan food. I've got to tell you, since my first trip there, I've always wanted to hone in on that cuisine. At the moment, my favourite dish I love them all. They're all my favourites, like children. But the dish that I'm most in love with at the moment, because it took me a while to actually get it how I wanted to, is my version of a gamo pilafo that they do.
Yes.
So the traditional one is done, I mean, I love everything about this dish. I love that the gamo pilafo, so it's basically called a Cretan wedding rice, I'll call it. I won't call it a pilaf for specific reasons. Always cooked with staka, which is basically, for those who don't know, it's like a cooked...
Is that the one with flour?
It's like a cooked cream, that is blended with flour. So it's like the richest bechamel you've ever had, but not in a sense. Yeah, and they would cook the different meats in it because it was a celebration at a wedding, and I had one time in... somewhere near the Ethanol part. I can't remember the area where I was invited to this wedding, and they literally had a goose, they had goat, they had chicken, they had everything. It was all boiled in the pot, and then the meat was taken out. Then they made the rice dish with a stuck, and then finished with this big pot of stuck on the side that you'd be pouring on top.
You pour it on top.
Deadly, but unbelievable. I wasn't going to do a version like that, especially down at Ploos because by the water. So I've done something that they might call a little sacrilegious there, but it's just how I roll and I cook. I've done a seafood version. So, and I researched and I don't think it's been done for now. I don't think any Cretans dared try it. So we've done a version where we've made a prawn shell stucker because I can't get stucker in the country.
That's right.
But so we make our own version. We cook the gamo pilafo a la menu and we finish it with Pippi's clams, some prawns, and then we have 3 different fish on it, just pan roasted. So we're getting that sort of feel, but it's a seafood version. But what I love the most about it is Crete, to my knowledge, and I've done a lot of research, is the only part of Greece where they cook a pilaf, especially in a gamo pilafo, the way they change to cook a risotto. It's not a... Yeah, right. You don't just add the rice, and let it, this is literally a cooked dish where you just keep on adding more broth to it, which they've been doing... Exactly, which they've been doing for a very long time. So that's what I was talking about before, where the Greeks, for whatever reason, haven't self-promoted as much Italian, so they have gained glory to a lot of things. David would know this one is like... I grew up eating boboto during when we were fasting and so on, which is the Greek version of polenta. Greeks know for it. We've been eating cooked cornmeal finished off with feta and so on for thousands of years, or a couple thousand years. But for whatever reason, the Greeks were very humble in that sense. Like, they never really wanted to share all that. And if you wanted to, you really had to press your yellows and your thieves to actually get these recipes, or they'd forget them because a lot of it was wartime food and they never really wanted to eat it again. I know the Italians who love their whole cucina povera thing, but the Greeks were very resilient to actually promoting it. But God, it was such a big part of the cuisine. But yeah, the gamo pilafo is one of my favourite dishes at the moment. And we got... we're doing lots of them, but that's one I'm loving at the moment.
And that's one ingredient that's missing from the Australian market.
Exactly. Yes. So I know for me, cooking for just 30 years now, that it was hard to find all those then. And so it's always been, if I can't get it, I'll try and create my version of it. And so that's what we're doing. It's I think it's okay. I haven't had any Cretans saying
to try.
Mary, you look happy.
Oh, I'm very happy.
How exciting is that, hearing that from you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
I'll be visiting soon.
So you do that at Ploos, do you?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom, we're going to Ploos.
Absolutely we are.
You've sold it well. That is fantastic. Awesome. So that's Cretan dishes. Can I be a bit personal here? Tell me about what's your take on dishes and meals from Ipiro. Have you got that in your book at all?
Yeah, I do. One of the ones that I love the most from Ipiro would be the walnut pie that I've been doing for years. We've done the variety the eggplant. Sorry, the smoked eggplant and walnut pie. That's Ipiro. Yeah, which is a big one from that part of Greece. And another one that I love is that there's a big. The names of the place is a big lake up there where yabbies are a big part, or they call them like the sweetwater caravilas that come from up there.
Right.
And one of the dishes that I tweaked, because I put some very regional and then my variations, but the one that I love is the one that they do there, where it's basically the caravilas, the sweetwater yabbies that they cook almost like the lemon style, but it's mainly using lots and lots of parsley as a flavour. They've got like a waterside parsley they grow there. Names are bad, you'll read in the book, but I use our version of it and just finish with some sorrel. And there are a couple of dishes I love from Ipiro.
Fantastic. So what's your
And
book called?
especially, no name yet.
Okay, not yet. When's it coming
This is an
out?
exclusive.
It is. Exclusive to Ouzo Talk.
It was meant to be finished by this Mother's Day. It should be out by the latest by next Mother's Day. Won't make it for Christmas when it's still got a while to go.
We'll keep an eye on that. So it's
Yeah,
a Greek cookbook on regions of Greece.
It is yeah. It's a tome. We're up to 318 pages.
Wow.
So.
Jeez.
That's
Far
huge.
out. But how fascinating is that? Greece as a country, we're only so small landmass, but the diversity of food is just astronomical. And you've got, 318 pages and you're still going, you said.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
It'll be the encyclopedia of Greek food before you know it.
It could be.
He's smiling.
I think you're just giving
just-
away the...
That's the concept. There you go.
Tom.
Oh, dear. Should we cut that out?
No. I love it because there's one section where I start off we talked about Moussaka before,
Yeah.
where I try to do the whole, you might hate me, you might respect me, but I'm going to tell you, from all the research I've done, how I believe this dish became Greek to the Greeks.
Sure.
And I just went into it as much information I could get.
Well, proceed.
That's going to give it away.
Give us a high level.
You'll have to
You
get the
can't?
book.
It started as a Turkish dish. It was definitely a laid braised eggplant and lamb dish that was brought over during the occupation that Greeks did. But it only became what it became now when one of the key cookbooks, one of the main cookbooks ever came, when Tsirekas brought out his cookbook. When he tried to take back what he believed was Greek cuisine that was lost and remove what he believed were the dirty flavours in Greek, cumin and so on. He adjusted the dish and made it less spicy, but because he'd been trained in Switzerland and France and so on, he started incorporating a lot of French dishes and sauces in it, and he basically took this dish, simplified the ingredients, and then covered it in bechamel and created what is known as a moussaka. So yes, in history, it starts off as a Turkish dish, but it's definitely Greek, with a lot of thanks to the French for the bechamel. So
And the gratin underneath.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah.
Unbelievable.
Fantastic.
How good's that?
Perfect. Yeah, well, speaking of history, so we've covered off Alexander the Great's period. So what was the next big wave of cuisine that shaped Greece food after that? Was it the Ottoman Empire? Was it the Venetians?
I think it was a combination of everything. Everything had its span over the years, and Venetians were mostly sort of isolated to the Ionian Islands and the west coast. We're talking Mezzovo. We're talking, all those areas there where wine started to flourish yet again, and using sort of Venetian techniques more than anything. The Ottomans were quite a significant shift in Greek cuisine, a significant shift even to the way we the words that we use. Like Pete said, Moussaka had sort of had its origins in the Arab world.
Sure.
Other things like souvlaki, yaourti. Yaourti is not a Greek word, It's xenogalo. We don't use that word anymore, right? And
I didn't know that.
And baklava. We have this argument about baklava, right?
Is it Greek?
It's not Greek. Come on, guys, we use ingredients that are indigenous to Greece.
Yeah.
Whereas you go further east, it becomes more pistachio based, or pine nut based.
We have consensus in the room. Peter's nodding.
I'm agreeing. And then we got things like dolmades. I'm sorry, guys, it's not Greek. My mother calls dolmades. She doesn't call it dolmades. She calls it sarmades.
Sarmades.
Sarma means wrap in Ottoman.
Okay. I've heard them as yaprakia.
Yaprakia, yaprak. Yaprak
the
is
Cretans
another.
call them yaprakia.
Yeah.
So we had 400. This is a huge chunk of history for us to shape our cuisine.
Yeah.
It's a huge, and we can't deny it. We can't be resentful of it. It's made us as rich because it also includes the Venetian, the Frankish, and then as you go to places that are isolated, the true ancient Greek cuisine, which was about what Peter said earlier, about yin and yang, sweet and sour, hot and cold, those sort of balances of life, the four humours, right? That's where Greek cuisine was originally. The true Greek Hellenic cuisine is based in ancient times, and if we're going to go to what Tsirekas did, they call it the Tsirekas effect, where he wanted to de-Ottomanize where Greek food was, because it played such a huge part in where we are today. Even my mother she's from the north. I'm going to, again, be controversial. They're the best pita makers, the best phyllo makers in Greece.
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, the north, right?
We're from the north.
Ipero too. And she calls it gizleme.
Okay.
Right, where the pastry.
Yes.
You know, she says, "Oh, Dave, you want to take some? I've rolled a whole batch of phyllo. It's in the freezer. Do you want to take some gizleme home?"
Yeah.
So they still use those, sort of Ottoman words in their thing. And then what Tsirekas did was he put, the bechamel and the potato to de-Ottomanize food, and then he also, came up with avgo lemon to put on egg lemon sauce. Again, a velouté kind of a sauce which took away the heaviness of the dolmades. And then when you go to different regions of Greece, the south, they're more vine. Up the north, they're more cabbage because of the vlach influence. See, that's another part of Greek cuisine that is heavily influenced by, sort of other cultures.
Wow. It's fantastic. So we got the Ottomans to thank. So good on the Ottomans.
Yeah.
That was good. And it's what makes Greek cuisine the way it is.
Even talking about phyllo, like with your mum, I know, having researched a lot of it, when you're in the south part of Greece, most of it was and still is made just with olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. But heading north up to Macedonia, one of my favourite pies up there, Sofrito, is only made with butter between.
Yeah.
They never use olive oil. And for me, it was a revelation. Like, are you kidding me? And like, I spent time with these women. I mean, they made life easier because they were putting fettuccine between it. Like,
which is like ghee, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just helping them stretch out tables and roll it and fold them, going, this is freaking me out. It's like the milk effect. I was watching these people making a Greek version of puff pastry in a sense, and it's spectacular. Just something as simple as a little bit of cheese, lots of braised leeks, and this phyllo that is just drenched in butter is just sensational.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, I'd never even heard of phyllo being done with butter in it. But obviously, once again, with regionality, there wasn't a lot of olive production up in the north of Greece, so they may do it, but they did have a lot of cattle, so they're heavily on.
Point.
And my mum also makes it with pork fat, because she renders down when they make another northern Greek, which is also Iperotico favourite, is the pacha. The great hangover food.
Love it.
Right? And I remember my mum used to tell me they used to make massive pots during wartime and in the winter. And then they would put it out in the snow to set and to sit. And then they'd go and spoon out like a bit of, the pacha, and put it on their bread. And that was their meal for the day, because, they couldn't,
Unbelievable.
it was wartime, it was difficult. But she renders down pork fat, and then she uses that with the pita too. And
David, that freaks me out. I've just, it's a very similar story to that. Like when I was speaking to Mum when I was writing this book, and I told her, years and years ago, I told her I'd gone to this French restaurant. I had a duck confit, and she's like, "What is that?" And I said, "It's duck cooked in its own fat." She goes, "Siglino." What? What's siglino? This is, we're talking, mid-80s.
It's like, you're late to the party, son.
Yeah, she's like, "Siglino, yeah, we've been doing it for years, but we normally do it either with rabbit or with pork. And, when we slaughter a whole pig, we'll make it, we'll rent it in pork fat, keep it over the year, keep it in the cellar, keep it cold, and keep it." I said, "So roulette." And like, she's got, "Stop using the French word. It's called siglino, and we've been doing it for a long time." And that's from her part of Greece. And it's been part of my repertoire for many years, being able to do signal, and it's been a lot of explanation. It's annoying that when you try and sell it to a customer, that we need to relate it to either a French or an Italian, because we know what it is and we're learning what it is, but I'd love to be able to say, this is signal, and people know that it is our Greek way of cooking, meat cooked in its own fat. But yes, hearing you call about Baklava and that, it's just reminded me, it freaked me out. Yeah, and I've actually thanked Mum in the book, saying it was the inspiration for it, where it was a dish that I'd loved for so long, like the French version of me. When I realised there was a Greek version which was unbelievable on me, I thought, okay, I have to really explore this and find out where it all starts.
Mary, I mean, what I love so much about what you do is upholding the traditions there, or the original versions of the dish. Why is it important that we uphold those traditions, do you feel?
It's always been important because you know what I think it is? I think it's also the teacher in me, always wanting to teach and having people learn as well. Having taught in many schools, there are a lot of Greek kids around as well in many of the schools that I've taught at, and a lot of them are not familiar with Greek tradition, Greek food.
Right.
They tell me because they know Miss has Mary's Cousina Instagram. They know, oh, Miss, I saw you cook yesterday. But a lot of them know that. And they say, my mum doesn't cook like this. My mum just makes, normal food. She doesn't really cook Greek even. And they come from Greek families.
Right.
I had my daughter in 2019. And even though I've been a passionate cook since the age of 12, it became just more apparent to me that we've got a huge responsibility of preserving traditional Greek cuisine. Yep. Because what are we in now? The third generation coming through now, fourth maybe. Mm-hmm. Eventually it's going to disappear. And that's where I think our responsibility kicks in.
Mary, I believe you're right, because, if somebody's in there to keep it going, it's going to get lost. It's like anything.
Absolutely.
And listening to you, wow, I'm like, I'm loving what you're doing because it's so important. I mean, we work on, take myself on a very different, when it comes to food, a lot of it, especially for me, was ego over the years to really showcase it all. But you, there's just absolute pure pride about trying to keep that tradition going. That's fantastic.
Well, how proud are you to see that?
I'm loving it. Yaya won't be around for a long time for a lot of kids. And that is the last, here in this country at least, that is the last testament of that food being, families being fed all that sort of food. Right. So there has to be somebody who's going to hold the torch. And if it's you, thank you.
Thank you.
So there you go, Mary. You're the holder of Greek cuisine for the next generations to follow.
That's a big title.
Well,
that's a very big title.
And the way you've catalogued everything as well in your Instagram posts, it's fantastic. It's going to be there for years and years for generations.
It's all on the website. It's all categorized. I mean, if we can just hold on to tradition, because we're so multicultural here.
Well, how funny is it that over the years, it's always been a case of, when someone unfortunately passes away, where's the recipe book? Where did they write everything down?
That's right.
And my Yaya's recipe books, her pages are literally turning into tissue.
There you go.
So,
but you think about what you're doing now, and it's being catalogued online. Do you feel like this is going to be what people are going to be doing in the future? People are going to be mining the internet for things like that in 50, 60 years and saying those recipes are all there.
Well, I want to put my recipes onto pages as well eventually. So that's something we're chasing. It's a big journey, but eventually that's something I would like to do as well.
Yeah. Well, you've got them on tea towels. So.
Yeah, exactly. 100% cotton.
It's fantastic. I don't know if I need to wipe anything with it.
I don't think
Put
so.
on display.
Our mother's food is what everybody loves. Is that something that you gentlemen have tried to instill? Obviously, you guys are a little more, try to be a little bit more creative and take it to the next level. But how much of the original traditions are you actually bringing into what you're doing?
My teacher was my mum. She taught me all the master sauces, how to make phyllo, and a lot of that when I first started, and then took it from there. So without that knowledge, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I mean, I've been able to do what I've done. But mum, she was, but it was interesting because I got to that point where I understood and respected those traditional dishes. And then in my foray of a few months working in a restaurant, I started tweaking with them. So when I started doing things like, when I started making a black olive chocolate baklava I did many, many years ago, where I made the phyllo with black olive and chocolate, and she's going, what? And I was like, just give me a couple of days, just come back. I'm going to explain to you why I've got these flavors together, why I'm bringing the bitter notes and so on, and we're putting in. That's when I started doing the candied olives, put through it, and the little chocolate crumble and so on. This is many, many, many years ago. And she took a bite and said, nope. And then I said, no, just come back and let me. And I sat down with her and I explained to her why she's been taught this from her mum and from her yaya and so on, and why I respect what she's done and why I'm doing this and taking other elements. And then she got it, and then the more I would do and the more I'd be a little bit, out of the box with things. It went from quite a quandary of her not understanding what I was doing to Greek food to having a huge, huge respect for it. So much so that I know over the last, I'd say 25 years, she has changed a lot of the way that she cooks. and sort of tweaks things and does them the way I do. They're not as trad as they were when she would have cooked them then, because she and that's, I love that osmosis that I've had with her. I mean, I never wanted to stop doing that, how she does it, but I love that she takes some of the elements that I've taken from her and changed, and then she's put them back. So it's sort of a give and take thing. So it's been good.
Well, how much resistance have you actually found when it comes to
to the food I did?
Yeah.
When I opened my first restaurant, Dave, when did you open Paramount?
This is a question for both of you, by the way.
I didn't come there until 97.
Right.
But
okay.
it was open in 93. But you were first with Cosmos.
Cosmos, yeah.
And then Eleni's.
That's right. I opened 92. And we're going this far back that I'll just give you an example that in those days, we would have customers coming in saying, what is halloumi? What is phyllo? What is feta?
And how dare you make a pie out of rabbit and black olives?
That's right. Or the biggest one for me, and this was always mainly with the Greeks, and I hope they've come to love it over the last 29 years. But the biggest one for me was when I created my moussaka, because I was going
to ask you about that.
I was never going to cook. When I opened my first restaurant, I wanted to cook for a few reasons. I got sick of people when I was at uni saying, talking about Greek, and they're going, oh yeah, my parents did this to and it's all really oil, it's all this, and that used to really piss me off, because I'm saying, you don't know what real Greek food's about, you're judging it on whatever this little place is. So for me, it was a mission in a sense to prove people wrong about what Greek food was, because I wanted it, but then I wasn't prepared to open a restaurant doing traditional Greek food, because I wasn't trained to do that. So for me to open a restaurant, I had to open something where I could not be judged in that sense by anyone else. No one can compare me to anyone. So I created a version of Greek food, my version of it. So it was mine, and good or bad, they couldn't say, oh, it's a bit like this guy, it's a bit like that guy's. Yeah. It wasn't. That was all out of this mine here. And with a moussaka, I was never going to put on a trad moussaka, so it was my variation. It just came together one day, and I called it a moussaka. It was always in inverted commas for the first few years.
Tell them what's in it as well, because a lot of people might not know.
I'm hoping a lot of people would know it by now. So
we certainly do.
It's my moussaka of seed, sea scallops, stara mussarata, and a roast capsicum, tomato, fennel, salsa on top.
Wow.
So the thing that might make it be a moussaka is the layers of eggplant between it, but that's about as close as moussaka that I've got into it. Yeah. I've done variation in the last few years, but I've always been proud of that dish, because it was just, there was no other name. I couldn't call it an eggplant stack with tara mussarata and stuff, so it was the word moussaka. But I still remember first 6-7 months of opening, where I'd literally have some guests come into my first restaurant. They'd sit down, they'd order it, and they'd see it, they'd look at it, they'd see it, look at it, they'd get up past the bill and walk out, say, not a moussaka.
Yeah.
And that was mainly Greek, so I was like, okay, that's cool. That's fine. I respect your opinions.
It's funny, because we're not as militant as the Italians, but we're still pretty militant.
Now I think it's a different story. Yeah. But I was like, that's okay. But yeah, like examples like the rabbit and black olive pie, and there's been dishes, and maybe in those days, I can say, I'm older now, wiser, more relaxed. I was very ego-driven in a sense that, I'm going to see how far I can take something, and still hopefully it's good, but I just want to see how far I can push the limit on it. And I did do some insane things. It was great. I love doing them, and I'm very proud of them. But I know a lot of those dishes really, really annoyed a lot of purist Greeks who used to come in there, and that's okay, because controversy is good.
Well, it's probably a good point, a good time to bring David back in. David, you brought something in as well today. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've brought?
Again, I think it's that probably the Asia Minor DNA in me that always tends to go towards those kind of spices and this kind of technique or this style of food. But I brought a tuna pastourma. Right. And pastourma has its origins again in the Arab world. It originated with camel.
Yes.
So that's the true, sort of the origin ingredient.
Yes.
And now when you go to Greece, they're doing venison. There's some magnificent places in Athens near the markets there where it's just pastourma.
Yeah.
It's a whole street, a whole block of pastourma shops, and they're using Wagyu beef, and they're doing all that lamb, But I wanted to go with seafood. Tuna is probably the best because it holds its shape in the curing process. Salmon tends to fall apart because it's just such a delicate flesh.
How common is it to do it with fish nowadays?
No, nobody.
So this is
you. It's not something that I've seen commercially, but I've seen some of the modern Athenian chefs play around with it. I started off with toothfish because it's a nice, fleshy, thick fish and holds together well, and it's meaty in flavour, and so the spices don't overwhelm it.
So where should we start here?
I'd probably the tuna would be the best place to start because the salmon. I underestimated the potency of the paste, and it cooked the salmon to, beyond its.
And smells delicious. Let's have a look. And was this in your restaurant, David?
I've served it a few times with a little bit of black. I do a black aioli, with black garlic.
Wow.
A little bit of lemon juice and some fennel just to bring balance, because I'm always...
Fantastic. Well, that goes good with ouzo, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, I think we need some more ouzo there.
Absolutely.
What a great mezabaki.
But this is the kind of eating I like. I guess, again, it goes back to my part of Greece where, they drink tsiporo. They, make either tsiporo or raki, and they have it with a lot of meze, tursia, pickles.
That's right down our alley, David, as you can
see. And, the Iberoti, they're famous for the tsiporadica.
Of course.
Which again, it started off as ouzo drinking houses, but then when the Asia Minor people came, it then transferred into tsiporadica.
Yeah, right.
And Volos is probably the most well-known town for tsiporadica. Even up until 1972, no women were allowed into these places because it was
didn't know that.
It was a meeting place for men to talk about politics.
Okay.
And that's the kind of style of food, food I like to do is meze or little bites to have with.
Always sitting around drinking and talking.
Distillates or then wine.
Like we're doing right now, mate.
Yeah, and I think that's what Greek food is about: the sharing of the table, the sharing of stories, the sharing of food, nurturing and nourishing each other through food, drink, and conversation and company.
I think we need to try the salmon.
I think so too.
Staring at me as well. That tuna was fantastic.
It was.
But the salmon is a bit more delicate. The spice paste overwhelms it. I normally use pepperia, pepper, but I use the Florina peppers, and they're a little bit more sweeter than the Turkish counterparts.
Yeah.
So
it does actually have quite a good sweetness.
Yeah, and I put in a bit of sugar too, just because of the weather.
Yeah, okay.
Being a little bit, wet, and it's better in a dry sort of environment.
I love it.
Yeah.
Salmon was a favourite for me.
Yeah.
The spicier, the smokier, I love it.
Yeah.
Like you said, the flesh does look like it's falling apart, but the taste is on point.
But the tuna is always a better one. It holds together, and it resembles the loin of a camel or a beef.
Love it.
No,
I think we're getting closer towards the end now. So, an important question for all of you guys. You've obviously been back to Greece, at some point in the last, 20, 30 odd years.
Definitely not in the last 2 years.
But everyone's got a story to tell about a meal that they've had in Greece. I want to go around the table. What is the meal that did it for you? What's the meal that just sticks in your mind, and why?
Mine is definitely not a restaurant meal. I mean, I've had some great restaurant meals in Greece. Mine, I think, was more of the moment. It was when we were in my mum's village. It must have been... Oh, okay. It was between Cosmos and Eleni's, so around about 96, 97.
Sure.
I decided to take a few weeks off while work was happening, and so it was the first time that I was going to be in Greece with my mum and my dad and my brother, and all of my mum's and dad's brothers and sisters were going to be there at the same time in one of the villages. So it was the first time I was going to get to meet all the cousins, every one of them. Having gone before that, I was always a kid, I was just playing around, didn't have anything to do with food. But then my aunties, my mum, being a very proud Greek mother, would tell my Theus all about, what I do for a living. And it was just before, I think just after Easter, I can't remember. My auntie said, we're going to make a hortobita, we're going to go foraging. And I'm like, oh God, wow, it's like a dream for me. Something I've always only read about or seen. Yeah. And we literally went around picking everything like climatophylla and wild poppy leaves and thistle and the whole lot, everything they could find. We went back and we started, they were teaching me how they'd utilise all these wild greens and how we're going to put this pie together and having to make the feel. And in the meantime, my uncle and my dad had gone up to this village miles away to buy the one dish that they were known for, which were called maties, right, which I'd never heard of, or a Greek version of, which is basically a Greek blood sausage.
Okay.
When they came back, and you're very proud of having made with all my 7th years, and my mum making this huge pie, and we sat there late at night, because I think we finished making the pie at about midnight, so it was dinner for the Greeks. We were sitting out in the front of the house there, and we're just eating this, and I took a bite of this maties, and I was just mesmerised, saying, what the hell is this? It was like, and they were telling me that it's a pork sausage made during specific times of the year, and they'd keep them over the winter months, and I just never knew once again that Greeks did a blood sausage as well. Sorry if it offends people, but it's unbelievable. Spiked with clove and cinnamon, really rich, marinated in red wine for a few weeks and smoked and then roasted over open pie. Yeah, just that, and the pie was possibly one of the best meals of my life.
You're kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
Unbelievable.
So that's mine.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
What about you, Mary?
Definitely the first night in 2018, the last time we went to Greece. The first night we were in Crete, my Thea was having us over, and there was no question about it. We were coming, she didn't care how tired we were. And that night she made kakavia.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big seafood girl. I love my seafood, and that was the best seafood dish I've ever had. It was just an array of different fish. I don't know what they were, but I know there was plenty of barbunya in there, and just the rich stock that came out of those fish, and just this delicious soup that she made us. But I mean, there was an array of other foods as well, but that just really topped the night for us. And we were having my Theos. Just the whole night was an experience. We had my Theos wine, we had homemade scudia that had a bit of lemon in it as well. And I just remember sitting there eating, enjoying food. Behind my husband, there was a bag of mizithra straining. It was just the ideal, perfect location.
Wow.
I could smell the basilico in the corner from the pot plant my Thea kept on rubbing her hands on. Yeah. And it was just...
I feel like I'm there now.
Yeah, there were so many senses going on that night, but that kakavia... Yeah.
And describe, is it baked or is it grilled?
No, it's a soup. It's a Greek.
It's a soup.
It's a soup.
Wow.
Potatoes and fish. That's
it.
Fish and onion. That's it.
Okay.
Simple Greek Cretan cooking at its finest.
Fantastic.
It's just the simplicity of those ingredients.
Wow. Is it like a wintry dish?
I'd say it's wintry. We went in summer, but she made it for us, and it was just delicious.
Mate, any psaro soupa is all year round.
Yes,
as far
absolutely.
as I'm concerned.
You're right,
I'm all for that, even in summer.
Yeah. 100%.
Fantastic.
For us,
wow, good story.
The way you just described that, fair dinkum, I feel as though I'm there.
Yeah. There was a bit of gunfire power.
Yes.
That was the only thing missing.
Yeah. That's my cousins for you. But it's a fantastic night.
Wow.
Very memorable.
What about you, David?
I remember as a kid being taken by my uncle Zissi to the Horafia, and all he had was a spade and a bucket. And he'd walk around, he'd dig under trees, and he'd pull out... Back then, as a kid, I didn't know what they were. Even up until the age of 20s. Picking up these black bulbs and snails and mushrooms that looked like they belonged to, out of an episode of Star Trek. We're talking about chanterelles and mushrooms like that, and then we'd take it back home, and he'd prepare each ingredient, put it in a pan, and just do a fried egg on, sort of like an omelette, right? And it wasn't until later on in life that I figured it out what they were, truffles.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
And here we are, we are not worthy Italian and French cuisine because they use truffle, but here are, sort of very poor villages, right? Using truffles willy-nilly, you know, they were like cut so thick, like, you know, as slices of ham, and you know, but it was just the most amazing flavour, and that was my aha moment. You know, there is more sophistication to our cuisine, and there's a bigger story to tell than just that small passage of migration and you know, bringing our ideas of that generation and holding just onto that only, you know. There's a whole timeline and history. But yeah, that one meal of shaved truffle and mushrooms and snails, just with egg, was just, you know. And I'd always say, can we go back to the Khorafia? Yeah. You know, to dig for him. And he didn't have a dog, he didn't have a pig, he just dug it with, he just knew where to go, you know.
It sounds very French though, like a very French meal with the truffle and the snails. Yeah. I didn't realise Greeks ate snails.
Crete. I mean, yes. Yeah, God.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, that's
so much.
Really, you'll have to try it when our next one goes on. We've got two types, a pilafi and a souvlaki done with them. Yeah.
I've got heaps in the backyard.
But no, I mean, what you're saying is French. No, it's once again indigenous food. It's the stuff that we have in Greece. As I was saying earlier, we never recognised it over the years. It more than it was just what was Greeks believe it was just food we ate because it's what was there. But I mean, they never added that level to it like the Italians and the French did. But
it's exactly like our wine episode. You know, we've got amazing wines, but the French and the Italians promote it better. We're not good at marketing.
We're getting there. Trust me, we're getting there. It's I'd say the last 10 years have been unbelievable. The progress is insane.
Absolutely.
And you know what happens in Greece? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
The Italians are buying our truffles
they sure
for
are.
1,500 euros. And then
them
because the Greeks aren't allowed to sell their truffle on the market, right?
Why is that?
You'll have to ask the EU about that.
Yeah. It's what the Italians have been doing with Greek olive oil for the last 30 years.
So then they on-sell it for 3,000 to 5,000 euros to the rest of the world.
You're kidding.
Using Greek truffles from the north, you know, north of Kouzina, around Drama, Kavala.
Yeah. Yeah, so Greeks have got truffle. We can't sell it in the EU, but we can sell it to the Italians. They buy it and they sell it for double, triple the price.
10 times the price.
10 times the price.
Yeah. A lot of the oil that comes from the northern part of the Peloponnese is sold as oil that comes from Tuscany because of the trade that happens there. So it's a lot of that's still happening for whatever reason. I mean, you know, it's out of necessity. They sell these because people want to make money selling Greece, and they haven't built that market where they have that luxury brand to it yet. But that's, as I said, that's what they've been working on, especially in the last 10 years. And more power to them. I hope they really go for it because I'll do my darndest to keep promoting it.
Absolutely.
And the more I see, the more I talk to a lot of the suppliers, and when I go to Greece and speak to a lot of people and see what they're doing, I'm so proud. And seeing the Providors who are coming in here and selling a lot of those wares are amazing too, because there is a market for it and it's growing and growing. And I think people, especially over the last, since David and I and George have been cooking, there's definitely been a market for the cuisine that we've been cooking, and I know that what we've been doing has followed through. I can be as brazen to say what we've been doing has followed through in the rest of the world cooking modern Greek, and I just love the progression of it, and that has influenced a lot of the stuff that a lot of the regional ingredients that a lot of these suppliers are promoting now, because they've realised there is a market. People want it. It's not, and they do go out to those amazing co-ops in a lot of the villages and find these amazing either dishes or ingredients, and they are on the bandwagon for it. And God, I love that we're able to access it more and more now.
Absolutely.
More to come, but there will be.
Wow, good job, guys. 3 of you.
We could talk about this into next year, and I'm sure we're going to have another episode, but I think that sort of wraps us up for now. Guys, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Before we go, Peter, your restaurant is named Ploos. It's down at a Circular Quay.
Ploos is at Campbell Stores in the Rocks, and Alpha is in Castlereagh Street in the city.
Fantastic. So guys, if you're in Sydney, definitely go to one of Peter's restaurants. Mary, how can people find you?
Mary's Couzina on Instagram, Facebook, and maryscouzina.com.au, where all my recipes are available.
Fantastic.
Family recipes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, traditional. Love it.
Absolutely. And David, you're taking a bit of a break at the moment?
Yeah. So I'm having a Socrates moment. I've gone mad and I'm just trying to.
Well, I don't think we've seen the last of you in the kitchen.
Maybe
I don't think
not.
so either.
Hopefully, I can encourage or mentor or some of my wild ideas and my different sort of take on things can help keep the discussion points alive, and sort of the continued evolution of Greek food, I guess.
Well, we can't wait to see what you do next. We'll be tuning in. We'll be watching. And guys, again, thank you so much for having this discussion about Greek food. I can't imagine doing it with any other people, if I'm quite honest.
No, thank you. Thank you
It's
both.
been
Thanks,
fantastic.
thanks for having
And
us.
thank you for bringing the
guys.
food in.
Yeah.
I think that's the last. We haven't heard the last of you yet, David. We're gonna have to invite you back on Ouzo Talk to bring that delicious food that you brought in today. And likewise, Mary and
Thank
Peter.
you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming in. It's
Thank
been
you to
great
our
chatting to you
sponsors
guys.
at the Greek Providor as well. If you want to get in touch with us, ouzotalk@outlook.com, at Ouzo Talk on most social media platforms, and at Ouzo_talk on Instagram. I got it out in the end.
You did, mate. You did. It's the Ouzo talking, I think.
That's it. Nick, good to see you, mate.
Mate, lovely to see you, and I'll see you next week with another exciting episode.
Absolutely. Same bat time, same bat channel, as they say.
As they say, whoppa.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Ακολουθήστε μας στο Soundees, στο Spotify, στο Apple Podcasts και στο Google Podcasts.